So, good evening. Tonight, just a short update. About, I would say, 3 hours or 4 hours ago, Bloomberg announced that Russia has defaulted now. And that is to my video I posted Friday night. And the two bonds where they are now in default are the ones which were due in May. And the way this works is if they're not paid on the due date, the coupons, then the country who is defaulting has then 30 days time, a grace period, to remedy the default. And that expired tonight. So these were two euro bonds which should have been paid, and they were available in ruble, like what I explained on Friday, with the euro and the US bond, which were due Friday. They were due in May, and Euroclear, which is the equivalent of institution as ACH here, or the one in Russia, the NSD, the National Settlement Depository, they have not stated whether or not they had received ruble payments. From my understanding is they were not sending out any ruble payments. That means the investors, like I said before, would have to go to Moscow or send someone there or contact an attorney, a CPA, that kind of thing to get that arranged for them. But Euroclear has not received any payment, or they have not denied it or said they did or not. So, but Bloomberg basically said we have now a default. And the markets at this point, the Asian markets are up by 1% or so, and the futures, the US futures, are 0.3%, 0.1% up. This can change throughout the night. This is not a big issue because it really is not going to do anything, because the sanctions would disallow Russia anyway not to borrow any money in the Western world here. And the other thing is the sanctions also prohibit bondholders, ironically, who had bought this, to collect on them. This is one of the most bizarre situations I've ever seen, and I'm not quite sure and how this is going to work. Now, this is actually going to put Russia into a much better position because they don't have to pay anything out at the moment. They neither have to send any euros abroad or any US dollars, but they're getting 1 billion euros in every single day from gas and oil sales. And that seems to be going on for quite some time, for the near-term future. And so they're basically amassing more and more foreign currencies in Russia, which they can spend anywhere. But I'm pretty sure that the Chinese or the Indians or whatever other country there might be, who are not participating in the sanctions, or they're not, they don't care that much about it. They're going to be, the Russians can buy stuff there with euro or US dollars. And I'm sure the Chinese, they would like that idea rather than having Russian rubles. They rather take US dollars or euros. So this is one of the most bizarre situations I've ever encountered. And it is not your traditional default that a country is defaulting because they're unable to pay. It is rather the opposite is the case. They're loaded with cash over there in Moscow with euro and US dollars, and they're not spending it, which means they're going to have more and more of our money in this. This shows you that our Western politicians, with whatever they are coming up there, this is from Biden over to all of the socialistic stuff they got going on over there in Europe, they ain't wrapped tight, if you ask me. I'm not promoting any war that we, should get involved in an active war here. But the way these sanctions are structured in the interwoven, thing here in terms of business, in this is just unreal to that extent that there's no clear cuts in it. And the other thing is, what I also found interesting with the sanctions is that the predominant losers, or the primary losers in this, are all the businesses who had gone and conducted business with Russia. All the Western countries, European countries, and American, Canadian, New Zealand, Australia, all of the Western world, they had gone over there to provide services or to build stuff, set up factories. McDonald's is an example. And they're the ones that have to carry all of the losses in this. And you haven't heard a beep out of our socialist leaders here, from Biden over to Scholz to anywhere else, on how and if the corporate sector is going to get, reimbursed for all these losses because of the sanctions. These sanctions are instituted at the expense of the business world. And this is not just the large, corporations, multinationals. There's all smaller companies, who conduct business with Russia. There's Russian eBay sellers who've sold stuff here to the United States and to Europe from things they got. And we have sellers here in the United States and in Europe on eBay. They are selling to Russia. All of this is gone. And no one cares if that was a bigger part of the business or the revenue of these small companies, No one, this was just said, no, we're nothing anymore and we don't care. This is just, my God, no, we're gonna hurt Putin. In reality, there's so many small businesses and mid-sized businesses which, have conducted or had been conducting business there, which now have been cut out of this, and that was part of their revenue. Some of them more, some of them less. But who wants to lose revenue? So this is how socialistic, with total disregard to the economy, in that sense, to the business world, these sanctions have been implemented, not just to hurt the Russians, but they're also hurting businesses in the Western world or on the other side of the sanctions. And this shows you on how these politicians think, on how their whole mind works, that there has to be some form of, answer to the aggression of the Russian Federation towards the Ukraine. There's no question about it. But the way they have done this is just absolutely crazy. This is typical for this whole left-wing scene. They have no real plans or anything. This is also wishy-washy, and maybe, maybe not, maybe tomorrow, and it could be happening some other day, and then who knows. And then it goes or it doesn't go, and then the unintended consequences or the side effects of this stuff, no one cares. No one has addressed this. Now they're meeting there in Bavaria in a fancy place, and they're talking about something they don't really understand what they're talking about. That's my opinion. I'm not. It's poor. It's very poor what we're looking at. The whole thing is deeply concerning, to say this at least, because you have no logical reasoning involved in this of what we have. This is all emotional driven. And that's not a good thing for us here. We will see how the stock market is going to respond tomorrow on how they're going to take it. The American and the European stock exchanges basically have already absorbed all this chaos which came out of the sanctioning. This is part of it. There's multiple things right now with the downturn coming as part of the inflation we had already before starting here in the U.S. With the Biden's pet projects there. That was the primary driving force behind it, which ignited the whole, inflation story here in the United States that has cut into the profits or future profits, and then the whole situation over in China with this COVID-19 virus and the shutdowns and whether they're going to shut down or not shut down and how much more of this virus thing we're going to get, who knows. And so the entire supply chain issue got rattled, is still pretty much rattled through the mixer here. That's still not far from any recovery there. So we will see and how this is. So the market has absorbed some of the stuff already. On how much more they can handle or how much further this is going to now complicate the whole thing in the stock market, we will see. We live in a global world which is in the process of untangling itself, and that will take quite some time. And I don't think that the United States is fully ready to go from a industrial state to a society to a post-industrial society where they like to be, where they have tried to get to for the last 20 years. Post-industrial, and now going back to a industrial society. And this is something like right at the opposite from what our politicians in Washington, D.C. on both sides of the aisle actually want. They were not interested. They wanted to deindustrialize the United States. They call it a post-industrial society. And that's what that looks like. You have basically Amazon selling you everything and anything with the Chinese and the Vietnamese put together, mixed in with a few things out of Europe, for the higher-end luxury stuff. And that's about it. And then see what we can get out of Mexico. But everything else comes from somewhere else. That is pretty much the reality, post-industrial. If we're going to go back to this, to an industrial state or not, we will see. I had an interesting email the other day here from the SBA in Wichita, from their field office. They sent me an email and they asked me for advice on advanced manufacturing technologies. And I almost fell out of my chair because they're not making anything. This is not advanced or any type of manufacturing here is basically out the window. And they wrote in that letter, they had all the American scientists, create and develop all these patents and this, that, and the other thing. And they can't find anyone to build it for them. You have to go to the Chinese. And that's what they want because they're trying to get manufacturing going here. And I looked at this. I haven't responded to it yet because there's really not much you can tell these people. This is how far out of touch and reality everything is. It's kind of how do you say this? It's not a joke. It's too sad actually to cry about it, to make a joke out of it. But the overall thing is not very promising. So we will see what these rocket scientists here come up with. The old saying is, it wasn't meant to be it isn't a picture of mental health. And I guess we got that pretty much proven. So we will see what tomorrow is going to bring. With that, you have a great night.